Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll just wait another few minutes for a couple more people to join. We have a small group of attendees today. We're going to be focusing on a very interesting topic, which is Portugal and its Golden Visa program, and why it is one of the world's most popular residency programs. There is lots of benefits for the family in terms of an alternative residency, in terms of a gateway to Europe. We actually have a question on France and French residency, and yes, it is eventually after the 5 years of the Golden Visa program, it opens up citizenship, so it definitely is a gateway to Euro citizenship, which also includes France, and also it has a lot of benefits for children. I would say that approximately 60% of our clients are investing in the Golden Visa for benefits of for children in terms of education. If you get EU citizenship, in fact, then studying in EU is virtually free, as in you just have to pay an administration fee rather than overseas student rates. So there are, interesting and many benefits for us and also our children and generations. And so we will start in around 2 minutes. We'll just let a few more attendees join in. Meanwhile, Georgina, I think, Georgina, you can perhaps start with introductions of everyone here today.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Georgina Mika. I'm based in Jakarta, and I will be hosting this webinar. Today, we have a webinar about Portugal Golden Visa, and it's a residency by investment program. And we have some speakers here already lined up. You can see their faces here. First is Judith. Judith Leo is the director of IPS Real Estate Malaysia. Hang on, sorry. I got participants WhatsApp me. Sorry. Judith is director of IPS Real Estate Malaysia. And then we have Joao Baptista. He will be presenting Spark Capital. He's the partner of Spark Capital Portugal. And then we also have Jamie Gui. Jamie is a Portugal Golden Visa holder, and also she will be handling all the legal documents. She's based in Malaysia. And also we have our lawyer here, Antonio Viñal Jr., senior partner of AFCO Legal, and you can ask Antonio anything related to the legal matters. Okay. Okay. So today we have a webinar with IPS Real Estate, AFCO Legal, and Spark Capital. And a little bit about myself. I promote some residency programs and also permanent residency, either by property investment, such as Portugal, like today, and also Spain, Cyprus, and Greece. And also I promote US green card, EB5 and EB3, and Australia and New Zealand as well, but mostly for the business immigration, and Canada. So that's a little bit about me. And this is my contact details. I'm based in Jakarta, especially if you're based in Indonesia, then we can talk in Bahasa. It's easier. And then we will keep in touch after that. Okay, that's all from me as an introduction. And I'll let Judith will start, or Jamie will start?
I'll do the share screen while we...
Okay.
So thank you for joining us today again. Thank you for Antonio and Zhao all the way from Europe. Joining. Antonio's actually on holiday, on summer holiday in Spain, and so he will be logging off a little bit early. So we will cover some questions in the middle of this webinar. So if you have any questions, there is a question and answer click at the bottom. Please do not hesitate to ask any questions, particularly questions on Antonio. And we will also have another session of questions and answers at the end of the webinar as well. Meanwhile, we actually have an exciting group of speakers today. Jamie Gui is our first speaker, and she actually has a golden visa. So she is in her 4th year of her golden visa, and she's in a way the reason why I personally, Judith, has embarked on the program and also looking into the properties as well. So Jamie and I are old friends, and when I've been selling Australian property for the past 11 years, and Jamie, when she looked at properties in Portugal. Actually, she will describe later, just starting to look at properties in Spain and the Spanish golden visa, and it led her to research more about Portugal. And we both studied the market, the property market together, and found it very interesting. I must say, from my point of view, these properties are worth investing anyway for the diversification of funds. They're good investments. They have a yield, a good chance for capital appreciation. Even during this time, Portugal property has been less affected, and certainly compared to Malaysia and Indonesia and a lot of Asia, the property prices have been less affected. In fact, property prices continue to grow. So, so we actually have been very confident about recommending properties in Portugal for general investment anyway. And the golden visa, to me, is the cherry on the pie. It is really, you know, the property, these are great investments, they make money. And at the end of the day, you also get a golden visa, and it opens a chance as well for citizenship and also permanent residency. So our first speaker is Jamie. She has a golden visa, as we mentioned earlier, and then will be followed by Antonio, and then we'll go into a little bit of the Antonio Vinal Jr. of FCO Legal. He's been the lawyer who has processed most of our golden visas. We have 100% success rate. Together, we've done almost 70 clients, and it's been so nice to go on this journey with this team of people. So Antonio will be going on next, and he will be describing the Portugal Golden Visa. We'll go into questions and answers a little bit. And then after that, we will show you this beautiful property with Jamie and Joao that is developed by Spark Capital, one of the largest property developers in Portugal. Jamie will show later some slides on how many properties they've done. And also then we will go into question and answers again a little bit later. Okay, Jamie, to you.
Thank you, Judith. Good afternoon, selamat petang, selamat tengah hari for everyone. I just wanted to thank you for your time, for joining us today. I think it is true that Judith introduced me that I'm already in my 4th year of my Portuguese Golden Visa. In fact, I'm actually due to do my final renewal, and I'm supposed to meet Antonio in Lisbon in October. And the program actually has been a very exciting journey for me personally. When I first embarked on the program, we were originally just looking for a place for us to invest overseas that gave us a good rental yield and also in terms of a good capital appreciation. But then, of course, at the same time, when we researched and we were looking at the options that we can actually get a residency as well, Portugal actually popped up as one of the top residency options that we can consider in addition to Spain. So I actually spent a lot of time, and we actually spent time in Spain as well as in Portugal itself. And then we found the Portuguese Golden Visa itself very straightforward. The program, for example, has been in around basically since 2012. And since then, more than 16,000 family Golden Visa has been issued. And the program actually, it's very simple. In general, you only need to spend an average of 7 days per year. And you don't actually need to relocate. And in addition to that, the investment threshold itself also is very attractive. In fact, for the purpose of today, we will actually be showcasing the investment under the threshold of 280,000 euros. So just with the 280,000 euro option, you can already apply for this particular Portuguese Golden Visa. Then, as I mentioned to you, I think because a lot of us may want to have an alternative residency without having to relocate. So the idea that that we only need to spend 14 days every 2 years, an average of 7 days per year, becomes very interesting altogether. The process is also very simple. I think EFCO Legal and Antonio has made it very simple in terms of the process. And once we've made a decision with the investment, we can actually get the residency issued very quickly in terms of the biometrics approval and so on. Of course, one of the biggest consideration and the reason why I did the whole Golden Visa is actually for my family. And why I say that is because the Portuguese Golden Visa actually allows you to reunify up to 3 generations of your family. And I wanted an option that will allow my children to come along. And also, I think for us to be together with the children. And during this pandemic as well, we realized that this residency will actually give that option for all of us to be together if we wanted to. And at the same time, will also allow us to travel, because the card that you saw earlier in my earlier slide, it's also the temporary residency is also in a way like a Schengen visa. So you no longer need to apply for a Schengen visa when you travel, and you can actually stay for unlimited periods of time in Portugal, or you can also stay 90 or 180 days in Europe during the duration of your Golden Visa residency. The other thing that we found also very interesting is in terms of the healthcare. It's also ranked very well, 12th in the world, even before Australia and also UK. And then I'm also able to bring my children to study in Portugal, and they're very interesting programs whereby like the Erasmus program, which is part of the European education system, which will allow to study all over Europe actually, and by entering one of the Portuguese universities, which are also ranked very high globally. And this itself then has become, I would say, one of the major reasons why I actually decided to look at the Portuguese Golden Visa as my decision. So then the other option also came along just recently, when they also made some small amendments in the Citizenship Act, whereby after holding 5 years of the Golden Visa, in addition to changing your temporary residency into a permanent residency, a PR, which is actually more of an extension of the Golden Visa, you can also choose citizenship. And also, and with this citizenship, the difference between the citizenship and the PR is that you are able to live, to work without needing a work permit across the 27 countries and do businesses in that sense, or also study for free in some of the public institutions in any of these 27 countries. And even after, when they graduate, as I mentioned to them, they can continue to also work and acquire all the experience overseas. And for me, this then becomes very attractive because you get basically the EU and the whole EU as a whole has been a strong economy in that sense, and there are a lot of opportunities that I wanted to open for my children to experience. And not forgetting, of course, the fact that if we do choose the citizenship, we will be also holding one of the 5th most powerful passport globally, which will allow us to access places like US and Canada without having to apply for a visa anymore. So I would say all this basically have actually led me to make that particular decision to actually do the Portuguese Golden Visa, because it's also very clear-cut. But at the same time, I would say in order for me to maneuver the bureaucracy in Portugal, I wouldn't have done it if I didn't meet Antonio Vignal Jr., who actually has been supporting my entire application and also been taking care of my investments all throughout these few years. And I will now actually invite him to share more details with you on how you can actually go through the process of getting a golden visa.
Thank you, Jamie, for your presentation. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning from Spain and Portugal. And I will lead you now through the most relevant characteristics of the Portuguese Golden Visa program. Now, in terms of the program itself, we're looking at a residency by investment program, and therefore you need to keep an investment that's eligible for a minimum of 5 years. You will also need to keep a clean criminal record or police check, which is a given, of course. And then the minimum stay requirements are very simple to comply with. We're looking at 14 days during the first 2 years, 14 days during the next 2 years, and 7 days during year 5. So this minimum stay can be broken down as we go over the period of 2 years, or you can spend it in one go. In terms of the thresholds for the investment options, the most popular ones are the funds, whereby you invest 350,000 in a fund; property, where you buy a property, one or more properties anywhere in Portugal for at least 500,000, or you can also choose to refurbish a property, whereby the cost of the property and the cost of the refurbishment must total 350,000 euros. If this property is in the less populated areas in Portugal, then we would be looking at a threshold of just 280,000 euros. So these are the thresholds as they stand now. Starting on January 1st, 2022, these thresholds and these possibilities have experienced or will experience a change. In terms of funds, the 350,000 threshold will increase to 500,000. And property-wise, residential properties in the more populated areas, usually along the coast, these will no longer be eligible or qualify as a property investment. Retail, office spaces, hotel investments, etc., that will still be eligible. Now, a great advantage of the Portugal Golden Visa program is that it allows the main applicant to reunify family members, and this would include the spouse or the de facto partner, children under 18, but also children above 18, so long as they are still dependent, meaning they are single and studying. And also parents over 65, sorry, and that also depend on the main applicant. And these are the main applicant's parents and the spouse's parents. After 5 years' time, we come to a fork in the road, whereby you can apply for permanent residency or citizenship. Portugal allows full dual citizenship. You must have been a visa holder, golden visa holder, for 5 years. And of course, we always recommend that you keep your investment until citizenship is granted. The one different requirement that we would be looking at is the language requirement, and you would only need to pass a very simple Portuguese language test, which is an A2. There are 3 levels, A, B, and C, and 3 sub-levels, 1, 2, 3. A1 is the simplest, C3 is the hardest, and you are only required an A2. So again, very, very basic level of Portuguese. In terms of timeline, we kick things off by obtaining a Portuguese tax number and opening a bank account for you. And the bank account is a very central part of the whole process, because the bank will be issuing a statement certifying that you have transferred the funds over into the Portuguese bank account and that these funds have been used to invest. Then, number 2, once the bank account is open, you would transfer the money into your Portuguese bank account. Of course, by that time, you would have selected your investment, you perform your investment. Then we can start preparing and submitting the Golden Visa application. Golden Visa application consists in 2 phases. Phase number 1, you do not need to travel, it's online, and we would wait around 2 months for pre-approval. Once we get the pre-approval, then we can book the appointment for you to come over and get your biometrics done. And this would be repeated at the end of year 2 and year 4. So in the next slide, you can see actually how the cards work out. First card is valid for 2 years. Second card valid for 2 years as well. And third card also valid for 2 years. But again, even though the combined number of cards is valid for 6 years, after year 5 is when you can actually apply for citizenship or permanent residency. In terms of fees, these are broken down. These are government fees. Okay, and as you can see, there's a processing fee of €533, and then the initial card costs 5,300, and the renewal costs 2,600. So it comes to about €12,275 over the 5 years per person. So this is for each applicant and family member. In terms of purchasing the property, now a very important issue, these properties are freehold. So they're yours to keep in perpetuity and then pass on to your heirs in the future. Now, taxes, we are looking at one-off costs, and this includes transfer tax and stamp duty. Usually it comes to about 7-8% overall total. And this is paid at the date of the deed. The deed of sale is your title of ownership, which will then be lodged with the land registry. Annual costs, well, we have annual tax or property tax, and this depends on 2 things. Number one, where the property is located in. The rate might change slightly depending on where the property is located in. And this is assessed on the property's tax value. It is not assessed on the market price or your purchase price, but only on the property's tax value, which is a lot lower. Then if you should decide to make money on your investment, which you're allowed to do, of course, then you can decide on long-term rental or short-term rental, and there's a little difference in terms of the tax rate. So 28% for non-residents, long-term rental, 12.5% for short-term rental. From a global tax perspective, well, number one, the fact that you're a Golden Visa holder does not mean you're a tax resident in Portugal. You only become tax resident in Portugal if you decide to actually live for over half the year in Portugal, number one. Number two, there's no wealth tax. There's no gift and inheritance tax, just stamp duty, which is quite low. And then short-term rental income, as we have seen, the rate is also very, very low. So again, it makes a lot of sense from a tax point of view, from a property point of view, and from the immigration point of view. And that's all for me right now. If you have any questions on the legal aspect on the slides we have just seen, I will be very happy to answer them in the chat box. Thank you very much. And I will pass the baton on to Judith. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's been quite comprehensive so far, and I think we've covered a lot of the questions which has been posted to us earlier. I will cover some of the education questions and also family reunification questions. A lot of the time, we will address that on a Zoom, on another Zoom with you. So usually the next steps is to address your particular sort of family related questions and all that, because those are very consultative with another Zoom with Antonio later on, and it is a free consultation. So do contact us to take advantage of that free consultation. We've covered what is the investment amount and the 26 countries that is covered in the EU. I have a unique question, Antonio. Does the Golden Visa allow me to reside in Timor-Leste, in East Timor? No one has ever asked that question before, but it's an interesting question.
No, well, actually, not really, because, well, any residency card that is processed in Portugal, it is for Portugal. not for Timor Leste. Now, Portugal does belong to what is called the Community of Countries of Portuguese Language. So this, of course, is a number of countries that share Portuguese as one of the official languages in the respective countries, Timor Leste, of course, being one of them. And it is currently being negotiated a kind of freedom of circulation between all member countries. I cannot give any more information on this issue right now because, again, it's being currently negotiated among all the countries, and this also includes Brazil, Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde, etc., apart from Portugal and Timor Leste. So once, I mean, this could be an added benefit in the future. For now, Portugal is Portugal, and the Golden Visa is only gives you the advantage of Portugal and eventually, of course, the whole of Europe.
What about, is there any regulation differences for British passport holders?
Well, British citizens are now, of course, after Brexit, not considered EU citizens any longer, meaning a British passport holder that would wish to live, work, study in any EU country, they would need to obtain the relevant visa or temporary residency card, etc., etc. So in terms of long-term stays, they would need to, of course, go through Golden Visa program or any other visa that would entitle them to spend time in Portugal or again in any EU country. So right now, a British passport would only be entitled to spend a limited number of days per year in any EU country.
And is buying land considered to be a property?
Yes, yes, it is. Any form of real estate is eligible.
And but that will fall under the 500,000 scheme, right?
Exactly, exactly. That would fall under the 500,000. Correct.
Okay, so I think most of the other questions, Antonio's presentation is quite comprehensive. So a lot of the questions on tax and all that has been answered. But again, if we didn't address any of your questions or you feel that, you know, we need to address it further, do contact either Georgina, Jamie, or I. And we will arrange to have a private Zoom with you. And again, a lot of like the costings and all that on like families, it really depends on the number of family members you have who you reunify and their ages. And we can go through that with a private Zoom with you as well. So I'll just describe a little bit about Portugal. It is one of my favorite countries. The population is about 10.5 million people, average life expectancy. It has a very high average life expectancy. And I think that reflects a lot about the food, the lifestyle, and also just the general like openness of the country. Portuguese is the 5th most spoken language in the world, so that Portuguese test is probably not such a bad idea for us and our kids. By the way, with Indonesian language and also the Malay language, there's a lot of similar words like almari, meja, gereja, sepatu. There's you know, quite a lot of similar words. Keju. Also, the capital is Lisbon. It's in the center of Portugal. Portugal we always like reflect like it's a little bit like West Malaysia, so, and with Kuala Lumpur in the middle or Lisbon in the middle. And currency is euro, climate is temperate Mediterranean, and it actually has a very affordable cost of living. So a few impressive rankings about Portugal. It is the 3rd safest country in the world after Iceland and New Zealand. And in Iceland, all there is ice. New Zealand sheep outnumber people 7-1. So for a country with people, it's very safe. And it also remains one of the favorite destinations in Europe as well for a travel. In fact, it's the number 1 destination in Europe at the moment. And I also read an article lately. It's one of the top places for road travel as well, which actually brings us to the highways. The network system is actually comprehensive and very nice. So brings us to the property which we're going to showcase a little bit later as well. It has the 5th most powerful passport, being 186 countries without visa. It ranks 10th place in the ranking of the world's best democracies. Also, it's actually quite interesting. It's actually ranked like one of the 28 countries for to live in post-COVID. Actually, I noted that Malaysia ranks the last at 53, and Indonesia and Philippines as well, one of the last. So that's unfortunate, but I think that this Golden Visa program opens up opportunities for us, particularly now. I think we know the value of dual residence or dual residencies. I think there is power in that in terms of the times that we're living in at the moment, and it's also one of the best places for quality of life and cost of living as well. And yeah, it has a high life expectancy. Cost of living is low. It ranks 134 amongst many of the major cities. Forbes lists Portugal as one of the best places for residency and a second passport. It's also one of the top expat destinations. In 2019, it actually ranks 3rd amongst Taiwan, Vietnam, and then after that Portugal. It's also one of the best retirement destinations. In fact, there was an article there. It's actually one of the best retirement destinations and living destinations for Americans to retire to. English is widely spoken. We get asked about this all the time. In fact, we also do a lot of business with Spain, and I can't speak Spanish nor Portuguese. I think I'm getting there with Portuguese, but I consider Portugal actually much easier in terms of many more people speak fluent English. That's what I find anyway. Also in terms of education, I think Jamie covered that, and I think a lot of us, we've discovered that there's a lot of positive results or things to do for our children. Things like from the twinning programs through Erasmus program, and there's twinning programs with UK, with US as well, and also Portugal as a destination to study in is not bad at all. So of course, there are with the EU passport, it opens up, say medicine in Ireland for our children. So if and a lot of Malaysian doctors graduate from Ireland, so in the University of Dublin or Trinity, and if our children want to do medicine in Ireland, it is 40,000 a year as an overseas student, but as an EU citizen, it's only 4 as in just an administration fee. So that there are benefits there. In Portugal itself, Portugal actually ranks 6th best place in the MBA in the world education rankings, and also 35th best in the world in this QS Higher Education System Strength rankings as well. In terms of foreign investment, it's actually a lot of foreign investment there's still a lot of positive input this EY report shows, and I won't dwell so much into it, but contact us and I can send you this report. A lot of investment are pouring in terms of agriculture, in terms of IT, as well as Portugal is actually like a Silicon Valley of Europe, like an IT hub of Europe. There's also China investing into Portugal infrastructure. Multinational companies such as Amazon, Google, Zalando, Vestas, IBM are moving to Portugal, particularly for their technology divisions. And there's a web summit that happens at the end of every year. It's actually very interesting, a web summit. We have a lot of clients who recognize this web summit, a lot of clients in IT, as actually Portugal as a destination to go to, particularly for IT. Factors that are driving growth in property. So who is buying? International buyers actually the top international buyers are Brazilians, the UK, and French. Currency also, there is actually the euro currency. It has been a strong currency. Euro is the second largest economy in the world after China, so there is actually benefits in keeping euro. And also, of course, the Golden Visa investors has improved the skylines or the property in Lisbon and Porto, and many also of the cities and towns in Portugal. So that has been also a positive impact, had a positive impact on the Portugal economy. So Portugal also, the housing prices remain strong despite the pandemic. As you can see, this is a recent report, this is in September 2020. There is also a recent report where property prices has increased by 7.7% year on year in 2021. But in 2020, as you can see, it's beyond 8%. So I'm just going to pass the screen back to Jamie and also Zhao, who Jamie will be introducing shortly to cover the property on Spark Capital as well. And I also note Spark Capital has a fund. Jamie, Zhao maybe might want to explain a little bit about the fund as well. For the purposes of today, although Spark Capital have many projects, including projects in Lisbon, so they have residential, commercial in Lisbon as well. They have some beautiful projects in towns called Evora and also Alcázar do Sal. And the Alcázar do Sal one is the one that we will be showcasing today because it's under the 280,000 scheme, and we get a lot of questions on that. So Jamie and Zhao, to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for staying with us. Bom dia, João. Hope you are well.
Bon dia.
So I wanted to just introduce. So João basically is a partner of Spark Capital. We are glad that you're here with us this morning, and thank you. I know it's early for you, but thank you for joining us. And we're actually very excited to be working with Spark Capital for the last few years, and I'm really amazed with the number of projects that you have completed. And as you can see, we have finished more than 10 projects, and also there's still many more ongoing projects in that aspect of things. And since then, actually, we have had a lot of clients with Spark Capital, because also the fact that you've also done a lot of rehabilitation and being experienced in a lot of rehabilitation. I think the clients of this world is very excited to meet you today over the webinar. I think today what we want to do is initially, I think what we'll do is we'll ask you just to share a little bit more, João, on Spark Capital, and basically what's your vision, and how did you all start, and basically and where you think you are at today in terms of the company.
Yes, thank you for this chance, and good morning, everybody, and good afternoon. Well, good morning from Portugal. Good afternoon to you guys. Yes, Spark Capital started in 2014, more or less, when we started channeling some of the international investments towards property, mainly towards the Golden Visa. And we started realizing that there was a very small niche that had a lot of interest concerning the rehabilitation of old buildings in the Lisbon city center. So what we tried to focus on was, we tried to focus on the old architecture of the Portuguese tradition, the Portuguese heritage. And we saw that there was a lot of international focus and international interest in that kind of heritage and in that kind of investments. And luckily, that was a very, very good timing to invest in property, and property raised quite a lot for all of our initial investors, and it is still doing so. So we grew quite fast. We started doing more and more projects. We have more than 200 clients today, and more than 20 projects all spread around the city. And then we started doing investments outside the big city center Lisbon and going towards the cities of Évora and Alcácer, like you explained. And the advantage of those investments is that you can actually go to and apply for the Golden Visa merely with 280,000 euros, which a lot of clients found very, very interesting. So we invested first in one small project in Alcácer. It went very well, so we decided to go full-heartedly into the Alcácer 2 project that we have today, which is super, super large. We are very proud of what we've done until now, and if you have any questions, I'm very glad to answer them.
Okay, before I go further about the project in Alcácer do Sal, I was actually personally there, and you can actually see from the picture I have in the video, and I will explain later. I purposely wanted to put the picture so that our webinar guests will be able to see because I'm actually on the ferry when I took this picture. And it's beautiful because this is the ferry actually from Lisbon that you can actually take across to Troia. And after that, basically, that's where actually I drove across and stopped by basically Alcácer do Sal on the way to Algarve itself. And it was a very beautiful ride. But before we go into sharing more about Alcácer, I thought I wanted to show a video also about the surroundings of Alcácer, just to excite our guests for today.
Le Figaro called it the secret garden of Portugal. The Guardian described it as the most stunning coastline in Europe. A region of unparalleled beauty and authenticity, according to the New York Times. Unspoiled natural landscapes and great food. Monocle magazine. National Geographic calls it Portugal's time capsule. Let me tell you a secret. We call it Alentejo.
So before we continue to the next slides, that was just basically to orientate you a little bit about the surroundings. So what's really unique about the project of Alcácer do Sal is the fact that actually it's in the vicinity of actually some of the sites that you saw earlier on, which is why I wanted to bring up the video. So if I talk about the beach now, you know how exactly the beach actually looks like. When I talk about the vineyards, you can also see how basically that was also the Temple of Diana, which is also very close by, basically an hour's drive actually away from Alcácer, which is actually in the Alentejo region itself. So just a little bit of in terms of introduction. So as I was mentioning just now, my chat with Joao, basically I took a really nice road trip in my last trip in 2019. And basically I drove from Lisbon to the Setúbal municipality, which is actually considered more or less in the greater Lisbon locations. And then after that, I continued further on and basically took the ferry that you can see behind here to Troia itself, where they actually have casinos and so on. And then after that, I continued driving, basically enjoyed the sceneries, and actually I arrived at this beautiful city called Alcácer do Sal. So before I wanted to also share about in terms of location, as you can see in the video, you will see that actually the beach is only about 20 minutes away from Comporta. Comporta basically is actually where people like the famous celebrities like Madonna and so on, actually filmed one of her videos actually in Comporta because it has one of the most beautiful, longest beach coastlines in Portugal. And then, of course, in above here is actually Troia, which I mentioned to you. There's actually casinos and so on. These are actually also within a minute's drive only from Alcácer do Sal. The other thing that's actually very interesting about Alcácer do Sal is actually located by the Sado River. And the Sado River is actually traditionally, this whole area is actually, together with Setúbal, used to be like a fishing area and so on, a fishing village, which they developed over the years. But it's beautiful because close by as well, where the Sado estuary is, there are also beautiful dolphins and actually flamingos that actually comes in different seasons. So actually, for those who are going to Portugal, I really will urge you to do this drive itself, because actually it's not really far away. It's only an hour away from Lisbon, but it does sound as though that, I did so many things, just within that 1 hour, which sometimes I'm sure I remember my trip, Georgina, to Jakarta the last time. Even 1 hour I already spent in the traffic jam. So actually, I have to say this 1 hour of drive in Portugal was really worth it. And but before of course, in terms of business as well, in terms of capital appreciation, I think there's been a huge growth, and also in the vicinity, largely also due to the fact that especially in Évora and Setúbal, I think things have actually really changed and developed. And maybe, Joao, you may want to share with us, right? What do you think has changed a lot in Setúbal, basically in Alcácer do Sal now versus like 5 years ago, and why did you actually choose to invest in this particular building?
Well, there are many reasons. The first reason, I think, was that Lisbon has been growing quite a lot, and we've been seeing increasing prices ever since we started this venture, and ever since the Golden Visa program started. Lisbon has seen increasing prices, and a lot of not only international investors, but also Portuguese people started looking for alternatives. And I mean, being 1 hour away, or in the case of Setúbal, just 40 minutes away from Lisbon, that has been considered and has been chosen as a sort of alternative. And because of the landscape is so beautiful, and there's such a peaceful feeling to it, and you're just so close to the beach, Comporta, etc. This has been chosen by many as a sort of an alternative and sort of like an highlight of what you can do just 40 minutes away from Lisbon. And many people actually go and drive every day from Setúbal to Lisbon to work, and then come back and actually live there, right? In many cities around the world, that is considered completely normal, 40 minutes for your commute. And because of the increasing prices, that has been one of the choices. And then another main reason has been that Comporta has been developing quite a bit in terms of a sort of like a holiday destination. A lot of villas have been growing there and been developing there. And a lot of celebrities, like you mentioned, have been moving into Comporta. So Alcácer being the main city next to the beaches of Comporta, for us was a very instinctive choice in terms of investment. And I knew that it would be a very, very good pick and a very, very good investment for us and for the clients that invest with us.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the very attractive point. I think the fact that the Comporta is only like 20 minutes away. Maybe, Joao, you want to also share with us a little bit about Troia and how the prices are also increasing. And that's the one that I was talking about. You can see in my skyline in my picture where I took the ferry to as well. Maybe you'd like to share with our guests today also a little bit about Troia and how the property prices have been increasing as well, and what is actually in Troia.
Yes, so Troia started being developed when one Portuguese big investor developed 2 big towers. So Troia was traditionally just a beach, there was nothing. And then one big Portuguese billionaire, then developed 2 big towers in the center of Troia. And that's when everything started moving. And then a lot of people started building villas, the casino was built, like you mentioned. There's a lot of restaurants and a lot of enjoyable scenery and enjoyable activities to do. Personally, I recollect one of the best fishing and eating experiences of my life in Troya because it's so close to the sea. So you get really fresh fish, which is for me very, very, very attractive if I'm going on vacation to eat good food. And that's one of the things you have. And then you also have the docks. So you have lots of boats. You have a lot of activities they can do on the boat. So in terms of vacation, Troya and Comporta are one of the selected, for me, top selections in terms of destinations. I invite all of our guests to, if they can, have a visit there.
Yeah, it's definitely beautiful. And now that you're talking on the food, I remember about the chuko frito that I had in Setúbal, which it's probably one of the best. So chuko frito is actually basically this fried calamari. It's really one of the best. I mean, I had really good ones in Australia, but I have to say that really food in Portugal, it's really, really yummy. Moving on to the next slide, I also wanted to, sorry, Judith, you don't mind helping to move to the next slide. Yeah. I also wanted to share that what's also unique is also the fact that Grandola as well, we've also gotten some average prices in Alentejo in terms of how prices have been increasing. There has been a trend, and especially in Setúbal and Évora itself, the prices have definitely been increasing, and of course the surrounding areas of Grandola as well. So I think that's also contributed basically. So there's a lot of growth in these areas, and we really believe that investors who are actually investing in these areas will definitely get a good capital appreciation as well. The other thing that's also important to note that actually Alcácer do Sal is also at the entrance of the Alentejo region itself. So if you see in the next slide itself, right? So that's why there are a lot of big olive producers, just for the rest of the guests as well, for you to just familiarize yourself. So the Alentejo region basically is one of the two wine regions. There's basically the Douro Valley, and then there's also the Alentejo region. And actually, Alcácer do Sal is actually located at the mouth of Alentejo as well. So because of this, I think in terms of also the fact that the proximity, it's only an hour away from Lisbon, actually makes it really attractive, because if you want to actually enjoy your good wines, it is, you know, some of the vineyards and the 5-star top vineyards and restaurants and so on are only minutes drive away from Alcácer. And on top of that, if you want to enjoy the beach is only about 20 minutes away. If you want to go and see some dolphins and some flamingos, it's only about 30 minutes drive away. So because of that, I think it's really charming in that sense. Of course, not forgetting, it is also the main points that people will have to go through on the way to Algarve, and that's why it's an interesting city that people can stop by. Moving on to the next slide as well. This is just a picture a little bit about the town and the location of the property, which is actually by the Sado River itself. And it's a very beautiful, charming town, I have to say, Alcácer do Sal itself. I think it is great. And I think especially during this pandemic period, I think what some of the clients are looking at is also something that is not so high density. And I would say you can see also from the skyline, I think in general, in what's unique about when you come out a little bit more further out from Lisbon City is that most of the properties are no more than 4 stories high. And especially in the Alentejo region itself, most properties are only about 2 stories high. And that's why it gives you that beautiful skyline that I feel that after having traveled so many countries, this is really probably one of the most beautiful features in Portugal. The other thing I wanted to ask you, João, was maybe you could share with us a little bit more about the project itself, Alcácer do Sal, and how the first phase has done for you, which part is the first phase, and then maybe just share with us a little bit more, how did the second phase come along, and yeah, just share with us what are your thoughts. Thank you.
Yes, so basically what we did was we invested in this land that you see here in this 3D. Of course, it doesn't look like this at this point because it's a rehabilitation project. We use the existing buildings to rehabilitate and develop a complex like you've seen here, a private complex. But the first phase, to answer your question, are the letters A to F. Basically, those buildings which are pretty much sold out already. And the second phase has been developed later. We have already a much more comprehensive concept being developed, and are the numbers in the back. And what you see here as a sort of a ghost kind of area, it looks like a ghost building, but we already have the plans as well, which we can share. And those are the buildings, and those are the apartments that we are promoting with a view directly to the pool area, which is in the center, as you can see from this 3D. We'll have a pool, we'll have a gymnasium, we'll have supermarkets, we'll have a restaurant, all of that in the condominium. And the concept here will be to try to attract some of the digital nomads around the world to come and work from this complex just 20 minutes away from the beach and enjoy this kind of very beautiful surrounding that you have seen in the video that you have shared with the guests. And we'll have mostly T2s, which means 2-bedroom apartments, very well equipped and very large 2-bedroom apartments, which if you had bought them in Lisbon, they would cost a lot more in terms of investment. But here, because we're talking about an area a little bit more accessible, costs around 280,000 euros each. They range from 80, 90, 100 square meters, and they're very, very comfortable. We'll make sure of that.
Okay. How far is the project actually located to the town of Alcacer itself?
I would say 2 minutes drive. 2 minutes drive. So you get in the car and in 2 minutes you're in the city center.
Yeah. So that makes it even more convenient. I mean, not forgetting it's already an integrated development. It's really wonderful to know that there is only 2 minutes drive to the city center. I also wanted to like you to share actually with us as well how the investors can benefit from the hassle-free management that Spark Capital actually offers in terms of rentals and so on.
Yes. So basically, because many of our investors are foreigners and they don't have the time or the will to go and actually manage everything about the apartments, we also created a service that we would like to combine with selling the apartment, which is we will take care of everything for the client and basically do the management of the apartment if the client wants to rent it out in the market. Of course, if the client wants to keep the apartment empty, they can do that. But most clients, they choose to actually rent it out to get some return on their investment, of course. And we do that by renting out the apartments from the clients and in this private condominium. And we can guarantee 4% on the client's investment, on the investor's investment, on a yearly basis. And then we'll be able to rent the apartments either on a short-term basis, on like a weekly basis to people who come for vacation, or to families who just want to live in the condominium and want to spend the whole year there, and they will work from there or commute to Lisbon, for example. That both of these options are considered. We'll try to maximize, of course, our return, but we can guarantee 4% to the investor on a yearly basis in terms of rent.
Okay, thank you. So for the rest of the viewers today, we also wanted to let you know that this is just one amongst the many projects that Spark Capital actually is developing at this point. What is important to note is because this is under the 280,000 category, because it's a rehabilitation project. This is important because a lot of clients sometimes ask us, if I just purchase a piece of land in the interior area, does it mean that I only need to spend 280,000? But just to clarify as well, in general, you still need to spend up the threshold of 400,000 if you're just buying any form of property or land in the interior area. So this is actually quite a unique project. As João mentioned to you, it's actually a rehabilitation project itself, and it's just one amongst of the many projects they actually represent. Secondly, as Antonia mentioned earlier on as well, there are also in terms of investing into Lisbon and Porto, this is also something that Spark Capital also has. However, please take note, there is an incoming deadline in terms of the legislation, legislation changes that will be happening by January 2022. So because of that, I think for a lot of clients, the 280,000 category is definitely worth considering. And then the other thing is the other form of investment that one may also want to consider is also the fact that you can actually use the fund route and via Spark Capital's fund. João, may you just share with us maybe in about 2 or 3 sentences, why do you think your fund is unique, and why some of our guests today will consider using the Insight Fund?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, thank you for this chance. I think we created the Insight Fund mainly to hold most of our companies. So we have all of our companies inside the Insight Fund, which means that the investor will be a co-investor with us in all of our projects. So he will be holding participation units, shares of the fund that we use to do all of the investments inside Spark. The advantage of this fund, alongside of having very low taxes, it's a very, very tax efficient fund because mostly investors get no taxes on their investment, unlike property, which is very heavily taxed, is that we can also promise to clients that they will have priority in terms of exiting with their money in relation to us, meaning that once they decide to exit after 6 years, 7 years, and after their golden visa is finished, they can then exit from the fund with the capital before any of the other investors exits with the fund, namely us in Spark Capital. On top of that, we can also guarantee a 3% return on a yearly basis, and that is not depending on the property being renovated. So that starts from day one. As soon as they make the investment, day one, they start getting 3% on their investment on a yearly basis. So these, I think, are some of the main features, and it gives a lot of security, extra security, because a lot of clients sometimes fear investing in an investment fund. They think it's not safe. So we try to minimize this risk by investing ourselves in the fund, most of our assets, and then guaranteeing to the investor that they can exit before we do with the funds that they have invested. So that's the guarantee we put extra on this venture. If you have any questions specifically, I'm happy to answer.
If you don't mind, also. Sorry,
sorry. Actually, we've done a comparison on the Insight Fund compared to the other funds, and we really find it very interesting in terms of a fund which is property backed, and also Spark have actually they're one of the largest property developers we know, having done all these completed all these projects before, and also many more in the pipeline. So in order to, I suppose, participate in this pipeline, we think that it is a very good opportunity actually, and we were very excited to know about the fund. Yeah, sorry, Jamie, to you.
Yeah, João, I think the other important feature about the fund as well is that there's also the hybrid option. If you don't mind also mentioning in just 1 or 2 sentences why you think the hybrid is interesting, that will be great.
Yes, I apologize. I didn't remember mentioning that. So on top of having a purely financial investment, we also created a second option for investors in which they invest through the fund, but then they can choose an exit point with a property. So they can exit in kind, which means that you can choose a property from day one. You say, okay, look, I like this property in Lisbon. I like this property in Alcácer. I like this property in Évora. You choose from day one and you like this property, but the property usually is not ready because it's a renovation project, right? So you can choose this property, invest in the fund, get the return from day one. And then at the moment that you want to exit, instead of having your money back, you exit with the property. So that is a sort of a hybrid between investing in property and investing in a financial firm, in a financial fund. So it has the benefit of having low taxes in terms of investing at the beginning, in terms of taxes from your return when you exit, when you get return every year. But it also has the advantage that you benefit from the increase in price of your property throughout the years when you exit, instead of just exiting with the funds that you have invested in the beginning. So you can have that upper end and that upper side from the property valuation in Portugal, which is increasing quite a lot, as we all know.
And if you're keen on investing in a fund, the minimum threshold for the Golden Visa will increase from 350,000 to 500,000 by the end of the year. So this is quite our last chance actually to invest in the fund at 350,000, which is the minimum criteria for the Golden Visa for this year. So definitely inquire about the fund. And we feel that this Alcázar Dorsal property, along with Evora, which Spark Capital also have, provide a very good opportunity to also invest at 280,000. So those are some of the features, the financial features that we think are valuable, particularly for this year. Meanwhile, usually the next steps is to contact us for your appointment with Antonio to inquire about some unique features about your family, and these are the numbers to contact. My name is Judith. I'm from International Property Settlements. Jamie, representing FCO. Actually, there's a FCO Legal, and also Georgina, our partner in Indonesia as well. And so do contact us and arrange that next appointment, and we will be able to cover some of the unique features regarding your family and your dynamics, and also go through things like different payment plans that you might have depending on your unique situations. So do contact us. We'll go now through some of the questions that we haven't covered earlier. Jamie, would you talk a little bit more about education, because we do get asked that a lot. And you know, what are some of the benefits in terms of education in the Golden Visa and also as an EU citizen?
Okay. So as a Golden Visa holder, you are initially a temporary resident. But what's really unique about the Portuguese temporary residency is that you actually get equivalent rights as a permanent resident. So what that means is that actually you already in Portugal will enjoy the benefits like any other PR or citizen from the moment you onboard the Portuguese Golden Visa program as a temporary resident. So that would mean that if you're going in, let's say, for the normal education, let's say primary or secondary, education will be free in the public institutions. And if you were to join, let's say, for example, a university or colleges or institutes, basically in our countries that we recognize that, then of course you still need to pay some of the private fees. However, in comparison to Kuala Lumpur or even to Jakarta or whatever, I think the education cost itself for universities is very, very reasonable. A private college, for example, will cost us so much more, whereas you will only need to spend something like about 6,000 euros per year in terms of education for university or foundation year. And I think that that's definitely very, very reasonable. And most importantly is a lot of the courses are actually, including medicine, is actually offered in English. So you don't actually, in some of these courses, of course, we have a whole guideline, do contact us and we can take you through an orientation, you know, and share a little bit more information with you. But in general, I think what we're trying to say is that there are many higher education opportunities in Portugal as well, that you only need to spend that 6,000 euros per year. And of course, if you do already have bought a property, you can even let your child live in your property instead, right? At the same time, pay reduced rates from the Portuguese higher education perspective. And the other thing that's also unique, as you mentioned earlier on, that we highlight a lot is the Erasmus program. So the Erasmus program itself is also very interesting because the Portuguese education system is not just about graduating with a degree after studying for 3 years in Portugal. What ends up happening is normally the Erasmus program, if you want to do a single degree, you will do 2 years in Portugal and 1 year in the European country of your choice, or even US, or even like Australia or Canada, which you only pay 6,000 euros, right? So that's actually been quite interesting because for one of the universities that we are familiar with, They even offer a double degree, basically, let's say with University of San Diego, which normally you have to pay like 50,000 USD per year. You only pay 6,000 euros instead per year. So that makes it really interesting from a cost perspective. But I think more importantly, I think what's really unique about the program is, especially with today's generation, which I feel with the whole pandemic and having virtual classes, I think it's the fact that they will be exposed to multiple cultures. And what I love about Portugal is very multicultural on its own. But with the whole Erasmus program, which will allow them to travel in any of these 27 countries and spend their final year, or even in US or in Australia or Canada or so on for the final year, really opens up and I think gives them that exposure, which will really help them build character in future.
Okay, we have a question on what is rehabilitation, and I'd like to explain this a little bit. So rehabilitation is renovation. So particularly in property, in general, if you buy any property in Portugal, including land, you fall under the 500,000 scheme, which means you have to invest a minimum of 500,000 to be qualified for the Golden Visa. However, if you invest in something in the urban rehabilitation area, it hasn't been built for or renovated for more than 30 years, then you can invest a minimum of 350,000 in the main cities of Porto, Lisbon, and also some parts of Algarve, mainly the coastal cities. Now, so actually Spark Capital, I would say that they specialize in this, where you buy a property which you would pay, say, 350,000 for anyway, and under a normal way, you would pay for the property and then you get the property. But in this case, to qualify under the 350,000 scheme, there are two contracts. One contract is for the title, which that's why we like the 350,000 scheme so much, Jamie and I, because actually you get ownership. So you get ownership in one contract, and then there is a renovation contract on top of that. They call that the works agreement, rehabilitation agreement, but there's a works agreement. So you have title and then renovation. And these two contracts combined can be a total of a minimum for the Golden Visa of 350,000. So that is, I suppose, one way to explain it. And if that particular renovation project for the Golden Visa is outside of the main cities of Porto, Lisbon, and some parts of Algarve, which is mainly the coastal cities, then that criteria drops to 280,000. And thus, Alcácer do Sal falls under that, and thus it's such a great opportunity. So I hope that kind of clarifies it. If we haven't kind of weren't clear, please contact us by WhatsApp or email, and certainly in our next Zoom, where we can also explain clearer and also show you the contracts actually, which the Spark Capital contracts, which are very clearly written, I find. Now, if you were to invest in Porto, Lisbon, and those parts of Algarve, if you would like to invest there, then we only have until the end of the year to invest there. After that, it won't qualify, or residential properties won't qualify anymore for the Golden Visa. Spark Capital also have quite a few properties in Lisbon, and actually they are very pretty. There's one that has beautiful river views, and the river is just behind me, sort of views of this river. So if you like Lisbon, do contact us as well. We have until the end of the year. Spark also have some very interesting commercial properties, which we like as well, and we see a lot of potential in terms of yield and capital appreciation. And I think in this pandemic, street retail is probably one of the unique investments that a lot of international investors are looking at. So that Spark has some street retail, and if you look at all the properties that Spark has, there is actually a choice for everyone. So do contact us and or Jao, and we would be able to show you some of these projects as well over here in Lisbon. And certainly the fund is again an alternative way. So depending on your own criteria and of investment, actually we have several alternatives for you under the Spark duck umbrella as well.
Judith, sorry, there's someone raising hands, so maybe he wants to address the question verbally. Is that doable?
Under this, we can we do that, Justin? Or you might have to type in your question. Justin, is Alan Lowe available to? Okay, yes, Alan, you can mention your question. You're on mute, Alan. Okay, while we let Alan go unmute, we have a few specific questions, Zhao, on the investment. So one is on Alcázar do Sal, actually. So 2 minutes drive, is it possible to walk to the beach? Is it possible? Actually, it's 2 minutes drive into the center of the city, which has, I suppose, a beach, but to the river, not the sea. And can they walk to the city, to the middle of the city?
Yes, of course. The investor can walk to the city. They will take around 10 minutes walk, maybe 15, depending on the place that you walk. And you have direct contact with the city center and the beach area, sorry, the river area, the riverfronts. Even though the project itself is also in front of the river, but then the river continues into the city center. And so you can walk alongside the river and reach the center where you have the restaurants, the supermarkets, etc.
And what is the percentage rate of return, and do you have a guaranteed return?
So the percentage rate of return is 4% on the investment in terms of renting the property that the investors buy. And we guarantee it. Yes, we guarantee it. We make a renting contract. So we rent the property from the investor at the rate that we have agreed, 4%. And then we go and manage the property ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And actually, so I remember I was mentioning 2 contracts. So contract for the ownership of the property, contract for the renovation or the works agreement, and then the third contract is actually a lease agreement under the rental guarantee, which is optional. So if you like to stay there, you can, and you might not want the rental guarantee. It's optional, and that's the third agreement that you would sign. So those are the 3 agreements, and it's very clear actually in the agreements. Okay, so I am mindful of time. We usually try and do these presentations within an hour and 15 minutes. If we haven't addressed any of your questions, do call us. I think you're in contact with either one of us on WhatsApp and email. I will be sending you a summary of the program, the summary of the presentation that we did today as well, and also the summary of the project Alcázar do Sal. If you have any other queries, do reply to my email, which I will send you shortly after this or tomorrow morning, and we will be able to book the appointment to address further questions as well. Okay, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us today again, and we will conclude our presentation now, and we wish you all a very good evening. And for Zhao and Antonio, just he's going on holiday on a boat at the moment, so have a really good day, everyone, and yeah, do keep in touch with us. Thank you, Zhao.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, terima kasih.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Ciao, obrigada.
Obrigada.